everyone, this is update for December 14, 2023, day 659 of the war and of the date update. Also catch up for December 12 and 13. Gonna, as always, start with the strategic updates, and then I'm gonna switch to the situation on the battlefield in Ukraine. I will sort of discuss key developments, one for Ukraine, one for Russia. So for Ukraine, this is I'm gonna talk about the let's say disastrous trip to the US by Ukrainian president, where Ukraine didn't get anything, and obviously the problem is in the US. It's internal fight between Republican and Democrat Party. Mentioned before that there was some indication that Democrat Party was willing to compromise on this border with Mexico. However, it doesn't look so. It looks like the polls that they were done by the sort of internal political machine of Democratic Party show that if there is compromise on this topic, there is high probability of losing upcoming elections. And so it looks like decision is not there, at least for now. So it seems it's going to be a situation where it's like, what's going to get more desperate, a situation in Ukraine or situation with the border, and what's going to win, nobody knows. But it's very clear that the Republican Party is firm, at least at this point, that they are not willing to fund Ukraine until the Republican law about the border, about immigration, really it's about immigration, is enacted. Going back to the situation in Ukraine, what this really means for Ukraine is financially there are some reserves. Ukrainian central bank has I don't know, like 30 or 35 billion US dollars in reserves. So and then also Ukraine is getting sort of small amounts from Europe, so there will be enough to sort of get by for probably without problems for 2-3 months, as for sure, without further help. But it's just clear it's going to be the situation is going to be deteriorating, and as Ukrainian officials said, that they probably will stop paying or reducing social benefits, pensions, whatever, payments to the government bureaucrats, and so on. So this is where it's heading from sort of financial, economical perspective. From the military perspective, situation may get worse much quicker because Ukraine is obviously needing quite a bit of significant supply of artillery shells and even bullets. The Ukrainian government never managed to build even the factory to manufacture cartridges for small firearms. So Ukraine doesn't have that production. Actually, it did have in the past in Lugansk, but it's captured, and obviously was captured since 2014, and there was no movement for all of these years to basically become more independent in terms of producing sort of expendable resources for artillery and small firearms. So it's unclear how sort of bad things will become and how quickly, but it's very clear that I think the margin in terms of the supply of military equipment is much thinner than financial margin, let's put this way. This and in terms of Ukrainian president visit, it didn't help by any means. And was even more problematic is that Ukrainian president and his team, they were not able to show clear strategy, clear path to victory, to whatever goal. There is not even clear. Well, there is a stated goal. Sort of nominally, it's Ukrainian territorial integrity, but there is no clear, vision how this is going to be achieved. And simple statements, we're going to get there, they don't work anymore, especially when there is confrontation between the two parties in the U.S. You need to have a very clear message and firm message where people can sort of sign up for it, and that obviously didn't help either. There was also no work done prior to visit. It was just like, okay, here I am. I'm a nice guy. You just give me money, and that's obviously does not work. So what happened then in Ukraine is obviously it's internally was taken extremely negatively, and to the point that political position of Ukrainian president becomes so weak that he sort of declared peace with the head of Ukrainian army, General Zaluzhny. So basically, if you watch previous videos, Ukrainian president was attacking General head of Ukrainian military through his puppets in Ukrainian parliament, and they were pretty, I would say, nasty attacks. So as a result of weakening of his political position, he had to sort of offer peace to the head of Ukrainian army, which he accepted, because it didn't look he was ever attempting to. So he was never seeking confrontation in the first place. All confrontation was coming from the Ukrainian president. This is also extremely demotivating for Ukrainian military, for Ukrainian population, obviously. I think a lot of people are still chewing, still trying to understand, to make sense, to develop their own sort of personal strategy, what to do next, because this really creates a real possibility on a personal level of defeat of Ukraine. And I'll explain why this is becoming real once I talk about Russia. But again, this is a very major strategic sort of defeat of Ukraine. This is not about Ukrainian president, who, as I said, is completely inept, and his team is completely unfit and inept. But it's about Ukraine. It's about Ukrainian population, and that's a major blow to Ukraine. And even this announcement about starting negotiations with the European Union, it's essentially much ado about nothing. There's no real quick solution there, and as I said before many times, for Ukraine to move to join Europe it would be very big mistake. This is not in interest of Ukrainian people. It might be interested in the interest of Ukrainian political top, which essentially is seeking to shed its own responsibility for sort of leading defense of the country onto someone else. And I don't believe that Europe is ready to take that responsibility. And so this whole sort of initial gesture will turn into basically swamp where there's no real movement for forever, and Ukraine does not have that forever time. The things probably will, if things remain the way they are right now, things will turn like really south for Ukraine probably sometime in the spring. Again, it's assuming there is no resumption of the military help in the amount that it's being done before. Now I'm gonna switch to Russia, and there obviously Russian all political top propaganda machine is in euphoria. They smell sort of they smell the blood that Ukraine is almost done. The vision is Ukraine is we're almost there, basically, that all of this effort, suffering was worth it. Even people who were criticizing Russian president and top of Russian military stopped doing that, and sort of this is really unified Russia from within, and so there is sort of like a leader, Russian president now. There is no sort of internal dissent. Effectively, he really galvanized power and sort of looking to move to this, I would say, so-called election, or election in quotes, that's going to happen in March in Russia. And for that reason, he did a Q&A for Russian citizens on the 14th, which really it's not Q&A, and he just simply shared his vision on all critical questions in basically for vision for Russia, where Russia is moving in all aspects, not only Ukraine, but from all angles. I'm just gonna touch on Ukraine because that's really the most relevant and important. Well, I would say it's not from my perspective. Let's put it this way. So first, sort of more simple things. It was not. The Russian president stated that Russian invasion force is 617,000 strong, which is roughly what I was mentioning before. I was more estimating between around 550. So it seems like it's a little bit larger. What this also means that this is essentially the number of Russian troops is almost similar to Ukrainian troops, plus minus. There is no real. Basically, Ukrainian army lost its advantage in terms of number of soldiers or number of boots on the ground over Russian army, and roughly it's more or less equal, plus minus. Maybe Ukrainian army is still nominally a little bit larger, but that's effectively means nothing at this point. From other perspectives, Ukrainian army is weaker in terms of tanks, in terms of IFVs, in terms of number of artillery pieces. So obviously, aircraft-wise, it's also non-existent. The only advantage Ukrainian military still has, even at right now, is artillery, specifically precise and long-range artillery. It's still better and much more deadlier tool than what Russia has, even though they have sort of nominal number of the barrels. They have more, but what matters is the range and precision, and that's where Ukraine still leads. And that's why these artillery shells are so critical, because effectively this is becoming a backbone of Ukrainian defense. Because without that backbone, Ukraine will not be able to. Ukrainian forces will not be able to hold on, because the quality of the soldiers on the ground reduced significantly. So there is no. So it's not the same as, let's say, spring of 2022, where people had strong motivation. They were much more skilled, and from all angles they were, let's say, better. I'm not saying that, I'm not diminishing people who are right now on the front line, but it's just in terms of quality, it subjectively was better, and that quality is gone. Not saying that Russian forces are getting better. Also, they also declining in quality. So this is sort of natural progression of any war. So this is not, this phenomenon of Ukraine, of Russia. This is any war. World War II was exactly the same situation, where the quality of troops declined for all major powers, especially obviously for Soviet Union and Germany. It's similar trends were during World War I. So, even like Napoleonic Wars was the same situation. And given that Ukraine cannot, but essentially lost one of the key components of its ability to defend, which, as I said, is quality and motivation of the soldiers. The only sort of backbone left is this artillery. And again, if there's not enough shells, that final sort of piece of backbone is going to be gone, and then obviously the whole body will start to crumble like house of cards. So this is perspective of that is quite real. I'm not saying it's happening in a week two. As I said, if the trend remains the way it is, it's probably going to be sometime in the spring. So the other more important things that were mentioned by Russian president during his Q&A is, first of all, that Russia will continue this war until it wins, basically until it captures all of Ukraine. He even specifically said that Odessa is Russian city, that Ukrainians and Russians are one nation, and it's effectively civil war. And so basically all of this narrative that you may hear from some people in the West, which is essentially this is almost like an internal Russian war, and the world has no right to sort of interfere. Basically, if you interfere, you're meddling in internal Russian situation, which is obviously not true, but that's what's the message that he is conveying to Russian population, and most importantly, Russian bureaucracy, which is essentially who is ruling Russia, because there is no sort of democratic representation in Russia. It's effectively bureaucrat. It's a rule of bureaucracy. The best way to describe Russia at this point. Again, so in terms of the sort of real enemies from perspective of Russian president, it's not Ukraine. He clearly identified U.S. as the enemy. He even stated he believes that the Nord Stream 2 was blown by the U.S. So all of those attempts to basically put blame on Ukraine, it's obviously nobody takes them seriously, including Russia, which is obviously the most important is perception of Russia, and Russia is very clear this was not Ukraine. So again, he has no plans to back out, and as I said, the Russian president, Russian top political and military, they almost feel that this victory is in their hands, and so they will sort of continue pressing, continue pushing to sort of like to push it to the final sort of solution, I guess. Also, the situation in Russian economy, while it's deteriorating, the life standard of Russian citizen is going down, but it's not deteriorating significantly enough or to the point where there is some kind of internal problems. It's not even close in that direction. So, for example, that like chicken eggs problem, looks like Turkey is going to be started supplying actually chicken eggs to Russia. So Russia is finding solutions. Russian political top is very creative in finding solutions, or basically juggling all of these multiple balls up in the air and making sure that nothing drops in really meaningful bad way. The only true problem, as I said before, for Russia is technology, and including aircraft as a piece of technology. That's where Russia is feeling pain, and the pain will continue growing as there is need for maintenance and replacement in terms of servers, in terms of wireless equipment, in terms of aircraft. So that's where the real vulnerability for Russia is. In terms of income from crude oil, there is a little bit of setback for Russia because prices for crude oil drop down significantly. So this probably will lead to reduction in Russian government's income, and generally it's gonna reduce the flow of money to the Russian economy. So things probably will get worse, but again, this is all sort of manageable, and especially right now, it's very easily manageable for Russian political top, because now they can sell this almost victory in Ukraine. They can show that, like, okay, we're almost there, just a little bit more, you need to sacrifice a little bit more, and we're gonna achieve our ultimate goal. And so that's really stimulates most people inside of Russia, and then quiet as any dissent or any other opinions about the situation. So from my perspective, this Russian pressure will continue, probably will even intensify. Now Russia has more people on the ground, and so there is more ability to have some gains, like territorial gains in Ukraine. And as I said, Ukrainian army is becoming weaker every day. As I said, two key components is artillery shells and obviously replacement of the cannons, of the artillery guns, because they obviously got lost. And also the most important is people. That's where there is no real easy solution to that. So that's hopefully exhaustive summary. Now I'm going to switch to the situation on the battlefield, and I'm going to do it in a clockwise fashion as I always do. So first, starting from the north, situation along the state border remains the same, quiet. Ukrainian military top started building defensive lines along there. This northern sector, where I show Chernihiv, Sumy region, is attempt to prepare for potential renewed attack from that direction. Doesn't seem it's going to happen. It's not imminent. It's not even happening anytime soon. But I think it's a prudent decision. Now let's move to the North Luhansk front line. Things here are more or less quiet. There is some Russian pressure northeast of Kupiansk without meaningful advances by Russian troops. Now let's move to North Donbass front line. Things here in the northern sector back to their sort of normal state, which is quiet, or I would say there is only like extremely low scale sort of attacks. Basically, effectively, it is quiet from that perspective. Then there is Russian pressure in its usual place, west and southwest of Bahmut, in these three main places. Russian forces continuing their pressure there. So far, there are no new gains by Russian troops, but it doesn't mean that the Ukrainian defenses here are firm, and I would not bet that Ukrainian forces will not retreat here eventually. Now let's move to the central Donbass front line. Things here sort of usual strong Russian, really strong Russian pressure continues, is not abating. Around Avdiivka, it's very clear there is desire to capture this town and show it, as I said before, as a political propaganda victory, that Ukraine is sort of like confirmation to this strategic defeats in terms of funding for Ukraine. Is okay, here there is strategic defeat, there's not enough military support, and we're starting to win. We turn the fortune on the battlefield, and people can kind of see there is proof for that, and that's really what's happening here with Avdiivka. There's also, as I mentioned, Russian troops managed to capture Marinka. They immediately attempted to exploit that and attacked in southwestern direction. They actually managed to capture some, 500 meters, 1 kilometer towards south. So there's a little bit of surprise effect, and in terms of Ukrainian troops did not have apparently prepared positions, and they retreated more than initially were sought, and Russian forces continuing their pressure. So now one of the next steps is obviously capturing this salient around Novomikhailivka. That's going to be another next goal besides Avdiivka in this area. Now let's move to Zaporizhya front line. Things here more or less the same. Russian pressure in the same areas where they lost ground. Russian troops attacking here north of Priyutne. Then they trying to eliminate this Robotine salient that Ukrainian army created during its so-called offensive. So far, Russian troops did not really make any meaningful gains. If they move forward 100 meters, it's nearly impossible to sort of verify or detect with certainty. Now let's look at the final section of the front line along Dnipro River. Things remain the same, status quo. Ukrainian bridgehead at Krinky remains alive, but no expansion. So effectively, it's a strategic dead end for Ukraine, because just supporting it in the long run without meaningful expansion is going to be simply expensive. It's effectively turning into reverse of what the Kherson bridgehead was for the Russian troops in 2022. If you remember, Russian forces were controlling this area where I'm showing on the western bank of Dnipro River, and it was doomed to be lost by Russian troops for exactly the same reasons, which is this is obviously much smaller scale, but this in the long run, if it's not going to get expanded, this bridgehead will be a huge burden on the Ukrainian army to support it, and in a way unnecessary burden if there is no plan to sort of attack and expand and exploit that situation. That's all for the day. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye bye.